Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this edition of LiR Confidential on lirmedia.tv. And our email is info@lirmedia.tv if you want to make any comments. And we're absolutely delighted to be speaking to a legend. She mightn't like me saying it, but she is a true legend. And Anna Moore, welcome to LiR Confidential.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
And we're delighted to have you, Anna. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in an avenue off of Wolfe Tone Street called Mount Pleasant Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And my father was a bookmaker, and he got a stroke when he was only 57. I had three brothers who are now all deceased. So there's only me left
Oh
now.
my goodness, there's only yourself. My
That's all.
goodness.
That's all. And
And was it when you were a little girl growing up, was it a little sporting was there sport spoken about it much or played much by your brothers or your family or your uncles?
Well, my father, as I said, was a bookie, so I spent most of my childhood at race meetings, from Tramore to Galway to Listowel. I spent all my summers at race meetings or regattas. That was the sports that we knew. Or we followed hurling. I followed CBS when they won the Harty Cup with Richie Grace, the Lord of Mercy, and Eamon Grimes and all of those characters.
Oh, Eamon Grimes, my God, of course he progressed without saying onto the seniors. He won in was he on the 73 team?
He was, yeah. They were all in the 73, yeah.
Yes, yeah, that was a cracking team they had that time, you know.
Yeah.
I'm of course, and I'm from Cork myself, so we had great battles with you down through the years.
I know.
So then you were going around to all these grand affairs, all these regattas, and all the. How did you find that as a little girl going around? Was it? Of course, it was nearly male dominated. That's the way society was then.
It was for us. I mean, there was another girl who's Geraldine. Her dad was a bookie as well, and all the bookmakers' children would play together around the race meetings. And actually, there was two lovely ladies. I can't remember their names, but they were Cork ladies that ran a stall there with crisps and lemonade and all those things. Two
Yeah.
lovely ladies. But that was our summers. We went from one race meeting to the next, and we would go to Tramore maybe the week before, and that would be our holiday. Tramore would be our holiday.
Of course, there's an absolute fabulous beach in Tramore, you know,
Yeah.
and many people. I'm surprised. Well, it gets a lot of visitors, but I think I spent lovely summer holidays there, and on Youghal Beach as well, over across
Oh,
it.
yeah.
There's some beautiful beaches. I know what they're, but that was your lifestyle, so to speak, as
Yeah.
you went to school locally, did you?
I went to school in Mount St. Vincent and Skullcarmel.
Oh yeah, right. Oh, up in the avenue, yeah. And that was a good time. Now tell me, when you left school, like most young people of that era, like myself, we really didn't know what we were going to do next. If you
No,
follow my drift, you know,
I,
there was no path laid out for us. It was
I,
sink or swim.
I started doing a Saturday job in Woolworths,
Oh God, beautiful Woolworths.
and I got a full-time job in Woolworths. That's where I worked until I got married. And when you got married, then you had to leave to give other young people a chance. So I
My
worked
goodness.
I worked in different shops, and I ended up working in Todd's and the tie department, because that's what I used to be in charge of in Woolworths. And I spent 14 years in Todd's on the toy department with a lady, a legend. Mary now would know her. Her name was Mary Carmody, and she lived in St. Lawrence's Park. She was a great lady. I worked with her in Woolworths, and this Christmas I had my daughter and my son. They were 1 and 2, and I was bringing them into Santi. And by the time I got back out to the door, I had a job.
My goodness.
And at that time, you
So that
needed
was a good visit to Santee.
a very good visit to Santi. So for about 9 years after that, I went in every Christmas to the tie department in Todd's.
Well, that's fantastic memories there, of course. That'll evoke memories for our viewers and listeners, Woolworths especially, of course, no longer there, But anyway, and then how did you come to be involved? I suppose which was regarded in some quarters as a man's sport, boxing at that time.
Well, I started going with my husband when I was 16, and he was a boxer.
What was his name?
His name was Seamus Moore, but they called him Archie Moore.
After the famous,
The famous, yeah. And
another fabulous boxer, Archie Moore. Did you see many of his fights on black and white?
I saw one.
Oh,
I
fantastic.
think because of the name, But I was only 16 when I started going with my husband, and he was boxing at that time. And he actually boxed in a place you'd know called the Parochial Hall in Cork.
And Grana
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it well.
Yeah, he was down there for 3 months. He was serving his time to be electrician, and he was down there on block release.
Yeah.
So he'd go up to the Glen Boxing Club.
All right.
And
famous boxing club, yeah.
We trained there. But that's how I got in. And then when we got married, he stopped being involved. And he was in town one day and he met another coach from St. Francis, Paul Manning. And he was asking Paul how the club was going. And Paul said they might have to close because he had no help.
All right.
So Seamus came home to me and he said to me, would you mind? I said, no, because I was the kind of a person that I loved all kinds of sports.
Yes.
And I was delighted. And I remember the first time he went away to a tournament with them. He said to one of the little boys, take off your top, and he said, I can't. But where's your gear? We have no gear. So the next day I was sent down to Roche's stores to buy 12 white vests. And I brought them home and my husband dyed them blue.
That's very good.
And that was say my first time getting involved with the club. So as my son got bigger and my husband got more involved, he was a member of Limerick County Board, he was a member of Munster Council.
Uh-huh.
I decided I'm not a stay-at-home mum anyway. I like to be out and about. So I decided I'd get involved. And I used to do the doors and I'd make the teas. And we were going to a tournament one night, excuse me.
Yeah.
And my husband never believed in having a boxer if you didn't have 2 qualified coaches in the corner. So he said to me, will you do the coaches course? And I said I would. So after Fermoy, I went to do the coaching course.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this was in the 70s. I was the only female doing it, and I passed my coaching course. And I didn't do a lot of, there was no females involved at that time, so I wouldn't have done a lot. It was only there if I was traveling that I could do the corner with him.
Oh yes, I have you, because as you said, there was no female boxing at that time. So you got your coaching badge and off you went.
And off I went. Then as we went along, we were boxing against Dublin outside in Mungret, and my son was the last to box. And if Kenneth had won, that would have been the first time Limerick beat Dublin in 20 years.
Go away.
And Kenneth won. But when I was sitting down watching, I was him and Ryan, and there was 2 Dublin coaches, 2 Dublin judges sitting down, and I was saying to Seamus, I could do that. I could do that judging, I said, So we got home and he said to me, do you want to do the judging? And I said, yeah. And he wrote out these kind of pages. Now he said, do that. Sure, I didn't know what I was looking at. They were actually fights written down, but you had to sort them out, who won, who lost, when there was a warning given, when it was a J, when a judge would give the warning, but it wasn't a warning by the referee. And from then on, I started studying it. And below in Cork, actually, I done my test in the country club.
The country club in Montenotte?
Yes. We had the Munster Championships there, and the computers were just coming in at that time. And I done my test there, and I got first.
Oh, good.
later on then, I got more involved in Dublin. I started going up judging to Dublin, and I was asked to go away as a coach manager to the Ami Cup in Turkey with Alana Murphy, who would be the first girl that boxed, actually, Katie, the first time that there was any boxing for females in the stadium. So while I was up there at those championships, my friend Fiona, who was a European judge, was doing her world body. And she said to me, why don't you do the European judging?
Right.
I wouldn't, I said. She said, it's similar to what you've already done, she said. So can't you give it a go? So I did, and I became a European judge.
When was that, Hannah?
Oh, that would be back in, oh God, about, I can't remember, it's so long ago now.
Was it
In the 80s.
the 80s?
Yeah.
And there was there at that time in the 1980s, were girls taking an interest, or was boxing taking an interest in females at that time? Was it still very slow?
No, I tell you, it was in the 90s that near the end of the 90s that girls started coming, clubs started taking girls in to boxing. And I think one of the largest was, there was two large ones. One would have been St. Bridget's Kildare, and the other would be Fermoy Boxing Club. They had lovely female boxers, but IABA wouldn't sanction female boxing.
Right.
So Katie then had to, on her own, pretended to be a boy. That's how she got first into boxing. She was put on the head guard, and they thought she was a boy.
Right.
That's how Katie started boxing.
My goodness me.
Because there was no female boxing. And in 2000, I got a phone call from Jim Walsh, who was Secretary of Munster Council at the time. And he asked me, would I go on a ladies' committee to start female boxing? And I said, no. I said, I don't agree with it. I said, I will be frightened of breast cancer, which that's what I said.
Obviously, yeah, there's a far more concern would be for females than males. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And at that time, then as I said, I will get involved. I said, because I said I might be able to keep them safe. So I went to the first meeting, and there was a lady from Broncrana, Sadie Duffy, and a girl from Ballina, Fiona Hennigan. And Dominic O'Rourke was the president at the time. And there was Mary Lawler from Carlow, and there was a man, Paddy, from Dublin. So that was the start of our committee. So myself and Sadie ran the first ever boxing for females. We invited all the clubs that had females to bring them to Dublin, and we'd match them.
Right, yeah.
So that's how we say it actually started. That day we had 12 contests, but we didn't usually, for boxing, you have to be the same age and the same weight, or you don't box each other. So what we had to do there then was, because there was only 2 matches, we say if you had a girl that was 33 kilos and she was 7, we put her in with a girl of 12 that was 31 kilos. So you give 1 weight for 1 age.
Oh, I have you. That's how you had to do it. That was, yeah,
and
that
that's
was.
How we started boxing, Pat. That's the way female boxing started, you know. And then I got a phone call myself and Sadie, from Dominic O'Rourke. This girl, Mercedes Taff was her name. She's actually now has her own boxing academy in Australia. She wanted, there was 2 girls switching from kickboxing to boxing, and the world championships were coming up, and she wanted to know, would we look at them to see if we'd send them to the world championships.
All right. When was that now?
That was 2001, when Katie Taylor was the first into the ring. Katie, they brought 2 girls over from England to box these. What was on at the time was Denmark were boxing Ireland, and Andy Lee from my own club was boxing it.
All right.
Halfway, when it came to the interval, they put on Katie Taylor and Alana Murphy. Well, Pat, when I looked at the 2 girls boxing, it won me over, because they were 2 fabulous boxers.
with the skill. And
They
do you
had
know
it.
something, Anna, not Cully, the one thing I noticed, and I'm not an expert, I'm just an interested spectator, but her hand speed, she never, ever, ever lost it. Did
No.
she have it all the time?
Katie had it, but I felt for the last Olympics and the World Championship that year that I don't know whether it was because her dad wasn't there or whether Zara was training her differently, but she didn't have the speed at that time.
No.
The minute she went professional, the speed came back again. But that was a hard time for Katie that time. And to this day, I was in Rio. I do not believe that Katie Taylor did lose that contest.
Well, my dad boxed when he was in the army before he married my mum, before he got married. And anytime we went to a boxing match, he always had the scorecard with him, you know. It was just the habit, scoring the rounds.
Yeah.
And he said to me, no matter what way you scored that, upside down or inside out, there is no way that she lost that fight if the scoring. But
No.
as we know, Anna, not disparaging anybody, it was scandalous, and as it broke out after with sure, look at the Michael Conlan decision.
Yeah. Oh, myself and Joe Hennigan, Joe was the manager with that team, and
Hmm.
Fiona, his daughter, we were sitting in this area, and Paddy Barnes was below us. And I was getting, you see, you can't see the scores now, but I was getting them from home. And after the first round, we thought Michael was well on top. And Paddy looks up at me, and I just done that, and Paddy nearly went ballistic. And Eddie Bulger looked up, and I just done to Paddy down. We're down one. Mike Conlon came out in the next round, and he took your man asunder.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And in the third round, your man could have been, he could have been the referee, and then you could have stopped him. But as we all know, it was all rigged.
Bought and paid for.
Oh, if you went away, Fiona, my friend, we were the first time I went away, as I said, she was to Turkey to the Ami Cup. My friend Fiona was the judge there, and she came over to me and she was snow white, and I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "Will you give me the tip on how the scoring is going?" I said, "Why? What's going on?" The supervisor had come to Fiona and said to her, Mr. Chowdhury, who was the president of the European body at the time, Mr. Chowdhury said, Turkish girl must win, Turkish girl must win. Yeah.
Cheapers.
And another time, Pat McCrory, who was a great man from the
Yeah,
north,
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Pat told me another time that when he was judging, there was a knock at his door, and this guy came and lifted up his sleeve and all these Rolex watches. Which you like, Pat? You go with our buy, and I get you a seat for the Olympics and that. You know, to judge in the Olympics.
Oh God.
It was terrible, yeah.
Now, going back, you mentioned Andy in passing. Of course, we were at his fight, myself and my dad. My dad is still knocking around, he's 90.
God
He'll be
bless him.
91 soon. Eating like a horse, but he's fine.
My
But,
mother lived to be 100, Pat.
huh?
My mother lived into her 101st year.
By goodness me, there's great genes there. So, but Anna, we went to see him in UL.
Yeah.
That is Andy. Now, he struck me, and I always was. The one thing I noticed about Andy Moore, apart from his boxing, was the way he carried himself. The respectful and the fantastic demeanor he had. Was that with him all the time? When did you see him first?
I saw Andy as a 14-year-old when he came from himself and his brother Roger boxed with Repton in London, and he won 2 ABA schoolboy titles with Repton.
Oh, be God.
When he came to Limerick, his man is from Limerick. And his dad is from Cork actually.
Yeah.
When he came to Limerick, they came down to our club. Now I have to say, they thought they were the best thing since sliced pan.
Confidence, loads of confidence.
And my husband used to be saying to Andy, keep the hands up. And Andy wasn't listening. So my husband brought him up to Connacht, up to the Gaeltacht.
Uh-huh.
And Andy got one wallop and was put down. And that's why he brought him up there. That's exactly why.
That's a good lesson.
He came back, done the same again. He was brought a similar situation where, again, because he always boxed with his hands down. That was
Yeah.
their style in Repton, you know.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, and next thing is anyway. After that, Andy kept his hands up. So we say it would have been my husband and Finbar O'Brien, and then my husband stepped back and left Finbar and my son Kenneth take over. So it was Kenneth then after that, as Andy progressed to senior level, that trained Andy. But Andy
And
was always a gentleman, a gentle giant, and himself and Katie Taylor were great friends because if you looked at both of them, they were the same kind of attitude and
yes, demeanor about him. Yeah, you're right. And Andy, but I'm getting as bad in the memory as you are. Was Andy our only boxer to qualify for one of the Olympics?
he
Was
was,
he?
yes, he was the only boxer that qualified for, was it Athens?
Somewhere like that. Was it Athens? I think you could be right. Which was, I
And he,
suppose, a disappointment because then our most successful sport in all the Olympics put together is boxing.
yes,
You know, no doubt about it. Going back to the time of Fred Teeth and all of them, you know, in
and
1956. Yeah,
Barry, Huey Russell, all of them.
yeah,
But
that's right.
but the thing about it is the Olympics before that, there was only one boxer as well, and that was Michael Roach from Cork.
Oh, I've forgotten about him. Yeah, Michael Roach. Yeah,
Well, he 4 years before that, he was the only one that qualified.
that was a tough time. You
Yeah,
had what's his name? Billy Walsh, of course, came in,
yeah.
and I thought I thought he was very good.
No,
Anna.
no. Gary Keegan came in as sports director. Billy Walsh and Czar was interviewed for it first. No, we had no. So Nicholas Cruz, we had a Cuban
Oh
first.
yeah, I remember Nicholas Cruz. Yeah,
Nicholas was there when Michael Carruth and them won. It was
yeah.
Nicholas Cruz that came in. He was from Cuba, and Billy then came along. He would have been under Nicholas Cruz, and then I can't remember what happened with Nicholas, but Billy then Czar. There was interviews for the high performance coaches when we went into high performance, and Czar Anthony, who's our coach at the head coach at the moment, high performance coach, he was interviewed, but Czar had very, very little English.
All right.
So Billy was actually made head coach and Czar under, but Czar was more strategy and strength, you know. But Billy, to me, was a fantastic. They let Billy go, and it should never, ever. He told me himself in Rio, he never wanted to go, and it was not about money.
No, 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 no. Look, these things, you'll never know the real story, but I agree with you, and I totally agree with you. And Billy made a big impression in America very quickly.
He did. Billy's very good because when Mike Conlon, lost, well, he didn't lose. When he was robbed that day in Rio, Billy came out to us. Mike was there with his wife and his child, and Michael came over to us and he looked and he said, Anna, he said, I never lost that. I know, love. I said, I know you didn't. I said to him, you know. And Billy came over and Billy said, I'm stunned, he said. He said to John Conlon, Michael's father, I'm stunned, he said.
Yeah, that was.
I wasn't preparing his boxer had got through. I wasn't preparing my boxer for the Russian. I was preparing my boxer, he said, for Michael Conlon.
Right.
You
Oh, I
know?
see. Sure, Michael. And at least Michael has made a successful professional career for himself anyway.
Yeah.
You know, Michael Conlon himself. Well, with this COVID now and all, everything is up in the air. But getting back then to how did you, and of course, women's box. My special guest today is Anna Moore, the legend from Limerick, the legend in boxing from Limerick on LiR Confidential here on LiRmedia.tv. And you can email us with any comments on info@lirmedia.tv. Anna, how did the ladies progress then from that first contest with when you were matching up the kilos with the age and the age with the kilos and all of that? How did it progress from that then?
From there, we say, in my opinion, it was Katie. After that, it was Katie. Katie's dad used out of their own pockets because the IABA didn't want to bring them to Europeans or anywhere. uh, her father brought her, right? And
Yes.
as Katie was getting successful, the IABA then came behind female boxing. And as I said, the first one we had weight 12 contest. Then they allowed us to put girls into the intermediates. And the first girl to win an intermediate title or any kind of a competition in boxing was a girl. She was from Dublin. She was going to um, UL and she would box out of St. Francis. So she would have been the first to win a title
In Ireland.
in Ireland, but they didn't call it. They actually called it a competition at the time.
Yes.
Jenny was her name. She was a lovely girl, and it progressed then. But what it was at that time, we had the girls separate from the boys. The girls had their own championships, and I remember we weighed the girls in. You had to come through your counties, and you had to come through the province, but you were always the finalists of the province were left through because there was, we wouldn't have a full program.
Yes.
And it got so successful then that we could only let the winners through, because we weighed 360 girls one day for the Irish Championships.
Oh my goodness me. That's
from 11 to 16. Yeah, we did.
That was a huge thing. All 360.
Yeah.
Goodness me. And now Katie Taylor, obviously, you cannot talk about women's boxing without talking about Katie Taylor. And the discipline, the interest, the dedication really that she showed to it. I mean, she's 20 plus years at it now,
Yeah. I was very, very honored, Pat. I was so honored that I actually traveled the world with Katie, to 5 Europeans as manager and to 4 world championships as manager with her, and other places I went with, say, box cups and that. And it was a pleasure. Herself and her father were her father was the best tactician that I've ever seen. He'd read the contest and they'd videotape it, and they'd go back to the room and they'd go over that slow motion, they'd go over it. And he could see how that girl could be beaten, how Katie could beat that girl. He wasn't an easy man to get on with at times.
Yeah.
But he knew his job and he knew it very, very well. And to me, we'll say, as I said, I was honored. I was there with Katie the day you had to qualify for the Olympics. The day she qualified for the Olympics, I was with her. That was in China. And there was another part, and this is true, Pat, only for Katie Taylor, and I know this, there would be no female boxing in the Olympic Games. And that's the truth. We went to St. Petersburg to an open box cup. It was organized by the world body for the best of the best in female boxing in the world. That was in 2010, August 2010. I was there, but I was there as a judge. I wasn't there as the manager.
Right.
So I was judging at that one.
Mm-hmm.
And the IOC came to that. And the best of the best was only there. And all they could talk about was Katie Taylor, Katie Taylor.
Go away.
I really do believe, Pat, and I would let no one tell me it isn't. It was Katie Taylor that got female boxing into the Olympic Games.
So you would say Katie Taylor is the Muhammad Ali of ladies boxing?
Oh, definitely. And
the face of ladies boxing.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I seen her in China. We were in China twice, 2 years before that. And I seen her after winning her gold medal come out of the ring and the sweat pouring off of her. And she stood for a full hour signing autographs and getting photographs be taken with people. That's the kind of a girl Katie was. She'd always be there for other girls, whether they were boxers. You'd have all the countries up in the upstairs taking videos of Katie to try to get their boxers to have her style. But of course, you had to have the talent to have the style Katie had, you know.
And the dedication. There was a lovely film. I thought it was nice anyway. There was a film on there last year on her. I think it's up on Netflix.
Katie.
Yeah, Katie, I thought it was fantastic, you
Oh,
know.
it's fantastic. The lads in Dublin were laughing at me because I went all the places with her, but I wasn't in any of it. And they were saying, I thought you were there. But I sat watching it here with my daughter, and I was saying, I was there with her there, and I was there with her there, you know. But what I enjoyed about the film is how when she went to America to train to be a professional.
Yes,
I mean, if you've traveled and you knew Katie's mother is a lady, Bridget is her name. Oh my God, Pat, you wouldn't meet a nicer lady. But Katie never done anything. She didn't know how to do anything. Bridget would plait her hair before she'd go in. Katie never even knew how to boil an egg or to wash any clothes. Her man was. So it was very interesting seeing the film, and I thought it was very funny that Bridget left all these little notes around the place for her, you know.
I saw that came across to me. I noticed in the beginning of that, was it Colorado or somewhere she was? I forget where she was anyway.
Yeah,
And yes, I think it was beautiful scenery there. But I noticed that one of the first glimpses in her kitchen was a lot of tins of stuff, and I said to myself, that's not what a cook would have in their kitchen, or someone who's cooking meals, pasta, and all of that.
she was trying to do pasta, and she had the recipe that her man Bridget left her. And then, as she was going out the door, there was another thing. Katie, don't forget to put off the lights and lock the door.
I know, and but it came across too as her. There's always doubts when you go from one stage to another. When you go from amateur to professional, that to me is a huge challenge. It's absolutely. I don't have to tell you, Anna. The difference between amateur and professional is, it's like playing junior soccer there here with Pike Rovers, or playing with Man United
uh,
the next day.
Sorry, could you say with Fairview Rangers?
Sorry, with Fairview Rangers playing. With- but you know what I mean, anyway. With apologies to Fairview Rangers.
I'm joking, that I'm only joking. But the thing about it, the first thing we learn, and it's in our rule book, amateur boxing is a sport, professional boxing is a business.
Yes.
You know, and Katie is a boxer. Most um, professionals, male or female, they're fighters. They are fighters. They're not boxers, and you could see that with the girl from Bulgaria. I can't think of her name now. The girl that she boxed twice. Oh,
Persoon
Sue, yeah. Um,
from Belgium.
Belgium. She came at her and at her and at her. Katie sidestepped. Now, I have to say, the first time she boxed her, I was very nervous at the end. I thought it could have been a draw. I didn't.
Gosh,
He wasn't beaten, but it could have been a draw. But
I thought Persoon only won 2 rounds in the first fight.
no, no. She was good a lot better in the first contest than she was. But she did throw an awful lot of punches.
She did, but a lot of them weren't scoring.
But that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of people out there don't know about scoring hits.
Yes.
Scoring hits have to land for it to be a score.
Yes.
You know? And that's I get mad at times with people up on Facebook. There's Sue Fox is this girl's name. She has a boxing app, and I'm on that. And there's this guy. He must actually know Pursue, and he must be from Belgium because he's always on about, oh, she never beat her, and you know, all this kind of thing. And I turned around and I answered him, and I said, look, she got the contest. It was close, but I said, yes, she did throw so many punches, but she didn't land with all. Well, Sue could throw 10 punches. There might be one landing.
Yeah.
He might throw 3, and the 3 landed.
Yeah, that's the difference. As you said, there is a difference. Yeah, when you mentioned boxer, she's a supreme boxer. There's no getting away. She's not. Well, she's aggressive, of course, but she's a boxer as opposed to, as you said, a fighter and a scrambler. You know.
But I do feel that Katie can actually fight as well as box. But I don't like to see her when she fights because she goes in and she's inside. I prefer Katie to be outside and to bob and weave and get in and
Yeah,
get out.
moving, yeah, left, right, moving, yeah. You're dead right there. But the second fight against Pursoon, I thought she won it handsomely.
Oh, she did. She did.
Handsomely.
And I don't know. You see, it's the people like that man. Excuse me, that I'm talking about. I mean, the pursuit said that night, oh, she was beaten. Next day, she came on saying she wasn't. You know, so
I know.
look, she was.
It's
There's
now.
another. There's another one that she was supposed to box, Sereno, Amanda Sereno, I think her name is.
Yeah.
She beat her Serena's sister. And your one is all talk. She's American, all talk. That's who was supposed to box Katie that time. But she pulled out because she said the money wasn't good enough. But if you really wanted to box and beat Katie Taylor, the money wouldn't mean that much to you.
No. It's the sure. What good is money if you can't box, if you can't fight, if you can't win? Really.
Her next
And
contest now is in April against Tasha Jonas. That's the girl that she fought in the quarterfinal of London 2012.
she's a good boxer.
She wouldn't be up to Katie's standard.
No.
It's the same. You have Chantel Cameron, and she's coming on looking at all this kind of smart talk, which they have to do in professional boxing.
They do, yeah, they do.
But the two of them would not be up to the same standard or anywhere near the same standard as Katie,
And what would you say to people now, Anna? There's always hurls on the ditch. What do you say to people that, in a serious way, that would say to you, boxing is not for women. It's not for women. They shouldn't be boxing.
Well, I believe in equality, and I think if somebody wants to do something, it's the same with rugby. They didn't want females to do rugby. If someone wants to do it, put them down into a club, let them try. I actually think female boxers are actually better boxers than boys and males, and I'm not saying that to degrade males or boys.
Oh no, I know where you're coming from. Yeah.
If you watch the girls boxing, I'm very involved now at the moment with youths and juniors. If you see them boxing, they box and they're in and out. The boys are holding and lemon onto each other. Girls, very, very seldom you see girls doing that.
No brawling, no.
No, they're more technical. The girls are more technical than the boys. The boys would be stronger, but the girls would be more technical.
And tell me, Anna, is there still a problem in 2021 with funding?
Big problems.
I know. I wasn't even going to go there because after all the furore and after all the scandals at world level in boxing, where they had to get rid of everybody out of it, and I don't want to mention any countries, but there are 2 or 3 or 4 countries who should never, ever, ever be allowed into boxing again, particularly into amateur boxing, has to do with the Olympics, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, there was seven referee judges, which one of them was from Ireland. The 2 technical delegates, they were all stepped down the next day after Mike Conlon's fight. They never came back out again. Then they actually, all of those, which I didn't think it was fair, every one of the referee judges that took part or anyone on the field of play, they were all suspended and never used again. Now, the boy from, I won't mention his name, the boy that was from Ireland, they were 5-star judges and they were on big wages,
Yeah.
But as I said, they were never used again. We had to do reform, and the IOC weren't happy with our governance or our memorandums, and they have actually, because we were owed millions, I don't know where the millions were, but we owed them, and Mr. Wu stepped down, or he was asked to step down, and we got an interim president, and he's gone now. There was a vote before Christmas, and it's a Russian now. He seems to be a nice man. That's now the president of our of ABA, which is our world body.
So the Russian is the president of I know what it is.
AIBA, which is world body.
And
They
have we a representative on that?
not we'd have representative on different committees,
And councils, yeah.
councils within the world body and the
Yes.
European body.
Mm.
But the thing about it is when you go to those meetings, because I was on the world body, I'm on the European one, but on the world one with us, and I was very honoured because we went from 2012 having only 3 weights for women to having 5. And it was the committee, the World Body Commission for Female Boxing, that we sat down for 2 days and argued amongst ourselves which were the 2 weights that should go in, you know?
Yeah.
And after that, we say all the other commissions, you went into meetings with them, maybe 2 from the female committee, into where you had the 2 from all the other committees. And I was, myself and Poonan from India were the ones that went into the one to give our sell on the 2 extra weights. And they wanted to put, we had 51, 60 and 75. And we wanted to put in 54 and 69. They wanted to put in 64 kgs. But our argument to them was that if you go from 60 to 75, that's 15 kilos. If you go from 60 to 69, if you're a 64 kilo boxer, you can get down.
You can go up or down.
Yes. But from 60 to 75, you have no hope.
No.
They accepted what we said, and they were the 2 weights. So I feel proud that I was in that process of getting.
That's great. So they went up to 5 weights for the Olympics, yeah. Yeah.
For Rio and for this. Now they're telling us that for the 2024 in Paris, that now you're going to have equal amount with men and women. But you see, I don't think that's fair, Pat, because then they're taking weights off. Like when we got the 5 girls in, there was 2 weights taken off the men. The 48 was taken out and the 60 was taken out.
Right.
You know.
So that's a whole heap of nice, beautiful light flyweights. Is it light flyweights, Abby?
Light flyweight, yeah.
Yeah, there's some cracking. We had some cracking light flyweights, you know, and they can be great contests altogether, you know.
I mean, my own son now, Jim beat Paddy Barnes. He was the only one to beat Paddy Barnes as a senior boxer. Jim won the elite title in 2006. And he had beaten Paddy in the semi-final the year before, and he beat him in the final in 2006. But Jim couldn't go into high performance because he was serving his time to be an aircraft mechanic. So Paddy was brought in, you know.
The runner-up, yeah.
Yeah, you know. But like that, we say, from then on, like we're saying, they were going to Chicago to the World Championships, and Billy only wanted to bring 5 weights for the boys. And our committee, Central Council, said, no, we want a full team going. And Paddy Barnes was one of the ones that didn't want to bring, and Paddy was the one that qualified.
That's right, I remember that in Chicago. It's so ironic. He shouldn't have been there, but he was there.
That's because of our Central Council. We said, no, the full team was going. And that's how Paddy now got there. But when we came back then next year for the All-Irelands, my husband, the Lord of mercy, said to Jim, my son, you're down 10 points now, Jim, before you get into that ring. So Jim because Paddy had qualified for the Olympics, you see.
All right.
So Jim got into the ring, and I said to this guy, Joe Hernan from Galway, I said, I'm not watching this. I said, because Jim, whether he won it or not, won't get it, I said.
Go away.
Yeah. So I went to the bathroom, I came out, and Joe Hernan said to me, Jesus, Anna, he said, I didn't believe you. He said, but your Jim is after landing 2 lovely hits, and he didn't get them. Because at that time, you had 5 judges around the ring, and you had to press the button in 1.2 seconds together for it to be a score.
For 3 out of the 5 to do that.
To be a score, you know. So, in my opinion, Paddy would have won it 6-12. He would beat Jim. He would have beaten Jim 6-12. And it was going in, it was 4 rounds at that stage, and Jim was down 12-0 going into the 4th round. And my son Kenneth got the towel and he threw the towel in. And he said, it's a disgrace. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
Are you telling me that just before we finish this part of it, that Jim got no scoring point in 3 rounds?
Yeah,
That is just something you would see. Well, I won't mention any country
yeah.
where you mentioned before. That's shocking.
Well, Stephen Connolly, now the register. Stephen's a great friend of mine. Stephen came. Usually, if you ask for a printout, you get the printout of the judges' scores.
All right.
But they'll take the names off. They'll scribble out the names. But Stephen came towards me with the scoring paper and all the names on. And a lot of them had given Jim 4 to 5 points, which I would have given Jim 5 to 6 points, right? But as I said, they didn't come down together, so he didn't get them. But the part was, there was one judge, listen to this now, he had given Paddy Barnes 21 hits and Jim none. And not one of his 21 hits came down for Paddy Barnes. So he was only present for Paddy Barnes because he was at qualifying for the Olympics.
So, and Jim, I mean, as you said, I can't believe, no matter how bad or mediocre a boxer might be on the night, not to score any point in 3 rounds, not to be given any point, is just in. Now, I don't want to get into too much. Is there a process then? Well, obviously, when the towel was thrown in, I mean, obviously they were saying that the fight is over. But is there any process whereby you can appeal a decision?
You can. At that time, we weren't going to do it anyway. But the thing about it is,
in general, Anna,
in general, what you can do is you have to give, is it 200 euros, and you have to give in a written request,
complaint. Yeah,
and complaint before that championship finishes. And if you win the appeal, you get your money back. If you don't, whoever is doing it, be it Ireland or European or anyone else, will get to keep that then.
That goes into the kitty, as they say.
Yeah.
But there is, I mean, I can't ever remember, there probably has been the odd one. There has been very few reversals of results.
I've seen only one, I'd say, in the last 5 or 6 years. It was at the Intermediate Championship.
Right.
This boy from Portlaoise was boxing, and when he got a warning, and I can't remember what happened anyway, but the supervisor, it went to a count back. That means they had the same amount of points. And when you get a count back, the 5 judges are asked to press their button for who wins, But at that time, that wasn't there. So it went to the count back, and it was to discover that the boy that was given, the supervisor looked at it and said that the blue corner won. So he was made the winner. But when it was looked at afterwards by the chief official, we had to reverse it, because when you made up the scores, and I was saying it, I kept saying to Pat Ryan, who would be from your boy is after winning, he has to win it. I'm making it up. I was scoring it like I knew, because it was in front of me. And they went upstairs and they looked at it. They came back down. The boy was given the title, but he wasn't brought back into the ring where he should have been brought to give it.
Right. That was that was tough.
The stage,
Now, were you at the Olympics that Francie Barrett was at?
No, I the only 2 Olympics I was at London and Rio.
Well, you were at the right one, of course, in London. Well, that was only across the road, as they say. But
I'll never forget that one.
And tell me now, on a more, I suppose, sad note, really, the passing of Kevin Sheehy.
Oh.
Now, we're not going to go into the details of his death. It's well known, it was well reported on, and all of that. But the effect of something like that, Anna, in the boxing community, for a start, in the club and all of that, that was a terrible, terrible tragedy.
It was a terrible time for us all, mostly for his. I remember how I heard it, Pat. I was bringing my son my grandson Jamie out to my son's Jim, who's another coach in our club, out to his house in Mealy because Jamie was doing work experience in Latanza. And Jamie was in the car with me and the phone rang. And I said, Jamie, take that there. And I said, who is it? And he said, ma'am. I said, tell her, hold on a minute. I was just pulling up outside my son's door. And she said to me, ma'am, she said, there's a girl here. She pals with Kevin. I'm just after hearing that that he was knocked down and that he's very bad. She thinks he could be dead. I said, I got hysterical. I have to be honest. I wasn't able to talk. I went in banging at Jim's door. Jim, I said, come out quick, please. I said, Tracy, I don't know what she's saying. I couldn't talk. I rang my son Kenneth, who was coming off nights, who had trained Kevin, who was like his second father. They were inseparable. And what you call it. And I said, Kenneth, I said, I think I'm after hearing Kevin is seriously injured from an accident or something. And Kenneth just said, get off the line, he said. I'll ring his father. He rang him, and Kenneth got back to me, and he said, Kevin's been murdered now.
Jesus.
I will never forget that time. My son, to this day, is still not right.
Well, I mean...
He came into he hadn't drank for 3 months, 4 months, because he was training for Hull, for the Box Cup.
Yep.
The Sunday before, he won the Box Cup in Hull. And he came back. And they were in the club on Wednesday night, and Kenneth, his girlfriend Emma was expecting their beautiful baby Kavea. And Kenneth said, he said to Kenneth, he was all excited, I got a ticket for the match on Sunday, the Munster final. That's brilliant, Kenneth said. You know what you do now, Kev, he said. You go away, he said, enjoy that. And I don't want to see you back here for 3 weeks until the baby is born, he said. And then do you know what we'll do, he said. I think we'll go for the elites for this year. Oh, we will, Ken. I feel very strong. Go on, he said, and enjoy the match. And that was the last time we saw that Kenneth saw Kev.
And of course, it's still raw and fresh for people. And there's very little more we can add. And it's that absolutely ending of life so quickly like that, and so much potential and so much promise.
He was earmarked by Tsar and by Bernard Dunn for the 2024 Olympics in Paris. But you know what Michael Conlon done? Myself and my daughter were at Mike Conlon's 5 Above in Belfast two years ago, and Mike Conlon dedicated. Before he started, he said, I want to tell you, I'm dedicating this fight to Kevin Sheehy, a boxer from Limerick, from St. Francis Boxing Club. And when it was over, I got up to thank him. They didn't want to let me up, and his father said, let Anna up. So I went up. Kenneth was great friends with John Conlon. And I got up, and the next morning, he texted me in the hotel, and he said, Anna, he said, can you get in contact, he said, with the Sheehy family? I'm giving them my shorts that I wore last night signed. I got on to them. He was flying out on holidays that night from Dublin Airport, and I got to them. And they got a minibus, and they went up to meet him in the hotel in the airport. And he signed his shorts, and they are treasured by the Sheehy family. But you wouldn't believe the people. They came from Belfast. They came from everywhere for his funeral. He was so well liked by everybody. He'd remind you an Andy Lee.
I was going to say that he had the same demeanor and aura about him, you know.
He did. And he'd say to me, you know, Anna, he'd say, some of my pals are on drugs, some of them drink, he said, and I'd be trying to get him to come down to the club and get him off of these things. Kenneth himself went into his school a month before he was murdered, and they'd done pads inside the school, showing the children what it was like and trying to keep him out of trouble, you know.
Yeah, I know.
And it was Kevin that asked Kenneth to do that. He just was a lovely boy.
LiR Confidential is the show, and my very special guest is the legend herself, Anna Moore from Limerick, and Fairview Rangers. Now, let's get that right now. And now, Anna, how are you managing now in COVID-19 and all of that? How are the activities, or is there any room for anything now?
I think I'm lost anyway because since my husband died 11 years ago this February, my life has been boxing. I never spend a weekend at home. I'm in Dublin because I'm on the championship committee. I do the weigh-in for the girls. I do the medical cards. And so I'm constantly in Dublin. And this is what's kept me going since my husband died. I am just lost at the moment. As in boxing, we were hit, I think, more than any sport. Boxing was the worst hit.
Yes.
We were closed down straight away. We were in the middle of our Munster Championships above in Southside. We were at the semi-final stage and we had everything in place. We had all sterilisation. We had everything. And then we were told by the government that we had to stop. Our Olympics qualifiers were on in London. Brendan Irvine qualified, Kelly, Harrington, and all of those, 7 of our other boxers were to box, we'll say, tomorrow in the quarterfinals for a place in the Olympics. And they were told, sorry, it's cancelled.
And how will that process? The Olympics are obviously in Japan, isn't it?
Yes.
Now,
I don't know will it go ahead. I really
there's no talk about it at the moment, and that to me is well, I'm speculating myself. Obviously, it's a sign that they may not happen at all.
Well, what I was reading the other day on a website that what they're saying in Tokyo at the moment is that it will go ahead, but no spectators. But Tokyo is rampant at the moment with the COVID at the moment, you know. But what happened after that was cancelled, Pat. That's rescheduled now for April. So those boxers that were beaten up to the cancellation of the qualifiers for the Olympics, the European one, that will resume in April where it finished. It won't start all over again. It'll just resume from where it finished.
Oh, I have you. Well, that's positive.
I think that is right. And then in June they had the world qualifiers.
Well, I suppose they could always hold the Olympics in New Zealand because they're COVID-free.
I doubt if they could do that now because New Zealand actually wouldn't get an Olympic village and all of those things.
Not in that short space of time. Yeah. They have very few options if they're going to go ahead, and I'd say it is more. It's not even 50-50 in my opinion. I don't think they'll go ahead.
Well, I can't see boxing in Ireland going ahead at all. We were putting our on our elite championships on this month, January, because those that were actually beaten in the qualifiers, it gave the rest of the boxers putting these championships on maybe a chance of going to the world qualifier. But now we'll say that had to be cancelled because of the COVID again and the lockdown. Boxing clubs aren't allowed open. We're not even allowed to train outside, as no sport is now at the moment. But, you know, sometimes I'm on Facebook and I see some of the coaches and I don't know how they know cop on Pat. Oh, I can't see why we can't open. This kind of thing. It's for the children's safety. It's for their own safety.
Of course. I mean,
but yeah, I do feel being a combat sport that we are hit harder and have been hit harder. We haven't had any boxing since last March.
Now, Anna, let's be totally honest about this. How rugby can go ahead and boxing can't is beyond me. If there was such a thing as close contact in any sport, that is top of the list in my book.
But you see, Pat, what you're told is they're elites. All elites and professionals can take part in their sport.
They're now, human beings like you and I.
Our elites now, our elite boxers that are getting ready for the qualifiers, or as we call them, the carded boxers who are on grants.
Yeah.
They're still training in Abbottstown. They're allowed training in Abbottstown because they're elite boxers. They now are going at the end of this month or February. They're going to Germany to a box cup, and then they're going on to France for some more training. but they're allowed to do that because they're they're elite carded boxers. They're on grants.
To me, they're still susceptible to getting COVID. I don't care what they're on. And to have a sport like boxing shut down completely, and I'm not picking on rugby now, I'm just saying rugby as an example for the same reason. It's a huge contact sport. Soccer isn't as much contact as rugby is in my book, because with all the scrums and
Yeah.
just close quarter game. Anyway, look, we could be going around in circles.
We were going running, as I said, our elites this month, and our officer boards had everything in place. They had a doctor that was coming in every day to do COVID tests on the boxers. You do 4 contests an hour, so those 8 boxers plus their coaches would have been the only ones left in, plus ourselves who would be the officials there. We had everything in place and everything was being done right, and it was all locked down again.
Now, our special guest is Anna Moore, and before we finish in LiR Confidential, and this is fantastic having you. Did you, by any chance, see the wonderful Muhammad Ali in Croke Park at all?
No, I didn't. My husband loved Muhammad Ali. My father-in-law was a Joe Louis man, and my husband and my father-in-law would have murder debating which of them was the best, and none of them would ever give in.
No, they were both good. Obviously, Muhammad Ali was of his time, and the same with Rocky Marciano and all of them. And what about did you meet Mike Tyson when he came to Limerick?
No, I didn't. No, I had no interest. I wouldn't. I'm not into professional boxing, Pat. To tell the truth, I will only watch professional boxing if it's some of the kids that I watched boxing as they were growing up.
Like Michael Conlan, like Katie, and
the only thing I will say at the moment about professional boxing, there are boxers that are changing to professional boxing that have never won anything in amateur boxing. That's fine, but we're also now, and especially this year, and because of the way things are going in Dublin, we have had so many of our very talented boxers turning over to professional boxing, and heartbroken with the amount of really talented boxers that have turned to the pro game.
Yeah, and I suppose they would be for and against that. People have to, I suppose, feed themselves and pay their bills and all of that, which is.
But Pat, they have to provide and sell 300 tickets before they're put on a bill.
Yeah, that's the other side of it. Yeah.
Not the Michael Conlan, not the Katie Taylors that are up there, but the ordinary kids that go professional. They have to sell 300 tickets before they can be allowed on a bill.
I was reading about, was it Darren Quigley? Is he still on the go?
Oh, Jason Quigley.
Jason Quigley.
Yeah, he's boxing in February, the 12th of February, I think. He's a lovely guy. Yeah.
I like his style.
I was sorry that he won the Worlds. I was sorry he didn't stay on for the Olympics that time. Really sorry. I thought he would have done very well,
Yeah, I was disappointed myself when I was saying suddenly he was, not suddenly, obviously, they were after him for a while, but he turned professional. I thought he would have given the Olympics a shot,
I was very disappointed that he didn't,
Well, as you said, he's fighting the 12th of next month.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think actually Andy Lee is his coach.
Is Andy? I was going to ask you about Andy Lee. He's involved with him, so.
Since Andy gave it up and that, he started. He took on young Paddy Donovan, who was with Our Lady of Lourdes Boxing Club in Limerick. He's from Ennis, but he boxes out of Our Lady of Lourdes. Paddy was being brought on by Bernard Dunn, and the minute that Paddy didn't win the elites, it was a different story with Dunn. Sorry, I shouldn't mention names, but it was a different story. And Paddy went professional, and Andy took him over as manager, and Andy is Paddy's manager. And we say he's been in Tyson Fury's corner as well. Andy has.
That's right.
And he's a cousin of his as well, and he's with Jason Quigley as well.
And Bernard Dunn, what's his actual job with the IAB?
He's high performance director.
Right. So the buck stops with him, does it?
Yeah.
And
but he's accountable to the CEO, who's Fergal Carruth.
Oh, one of the Carruths.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, they've been involved in boxing for years and years. The Carruths, that is.
That's it. Their father, oh, Austin Carruth was a gentleman.
Austin.
He was a gentleman, and you know he had Parkinson's, and my gym would be up. See, we started as well as the elites. We started an A team, which would be the runners up, and you know second and thirds. And Jim, my son, would tell me, Austin would be shaking. The minute Austin started doing pads, the shakes went.
Oh, because the
Yeah,
concentration.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, gee, I know. And my brother was in the hall in '92 when Michael won the gold medal in Barcelona. You know,
Yeah,
that was an sensational, sensational. Nobody gave him a chance
yeah.
against the Cuban. You know,
And,
but the old hook did the job. The old what was it called? I don't know what he called it himself, but anyway, he won the gold. What's his name from Belfast? Was in that Olympics as
that's
well.
right. That's right. Wayne McCullough.
Wayne McCullough. That's right.
It would have been Wayne McCullough that you would have been expected to win the gold.
Yeah, I mean Wayne McCullough was earmarked certainly for it.
But I do feel that Wayne McCullough did win that. Your man stuck his thumb into Wayne's eye. Wayne
I,
could see.
I remember that,
Yeah,
but it was still a close contest.
it was. It
Very
was.
close. Anna Moore, I don't know what you, as you said, you'd know what you're going to do yourself without boxing, but you go out in the street and go a few rounds with someone.
I'll tell you what I do. I get mass on my iPad in the morning. I go off with my friends for a 2-hour walk. We go off for 2 hours walking every day, myself and my friend, and we have a cup of coffee, and that's me for the day. Then
Well, Anna, I don't know. We'll have to do a part two because we're only scratching the surface, you know. And my special guest today on LiR Confidential on LiRmedia.tv was the legend, Anna Moore herself. And we will, Anna, catch up with you again
no problem. It was a
for
pleasure.
part two. And it was absolutely, you don't know how a buzz this is causing around the States. I can tell you that sincerely.
I doubt it.
No, I'm telling you, you'll be up in lights very soon. But from this edition of LiR Confidential, until we meet again, Anna, thank you very much, and goodbye, and God bless. What, Mary? Except, my producer here, Mary, has said before we goodbye, don't forget Fairview.
Mary's a pike woman, I think.
Oh, I think she's a lifelong member, but we won't hold that against her, you know.
We won't.
Thank you very much, Anna, again, and goodbye and good luck.
Goodbye, Pat.
Bye.
Hi.